Elio is a good film. Not one that is still the golden age quality or as great as some other films I liked in the past few years, but still found good enough to be a journey for something that was questioned beforehand with its trailers and production. That this film is better than what you take it for, and that's what we really seek in Pixar, where again, I should be happy to report that Pixar still has this consistent quality of being good, saying as someone who has began this channel questioning if the model was going to survive. Where this is probably the movie they really needed instead of Lightyear when it came out to return to space in a big way, trying to do an adventure type of movie in this setting with Elio as the protagonist. A film that is about him trying to join the stars, wanting to be with his aliens, accidentally becoming the ambassador of Earth, and trying to navigate through the communiverse, which is being threatened. A more simple, fun plot that isn't too hard or emotional as one would expect with their recent ones, but also enough to just satisfy an interesting journey, such as the very interesting history when it came to making this film with what went on as I mentioned during the production. It was originally planned to be solely directed by Coco's co-director Adrian Molina about this coming-of-age story where he's trying to find out where he fits in, being isolated at a young age. But how all of that would later change when they delayed the release date of the film, pushing Inside Out 2 instead that year and changing directors as Adrian couldn't actually see him finishing it, doing work on Coco 2 instead, while Turning Red's director Domei Shi would take over with another director who previously storyboarded this film, where because of the rewrites to the film, scheduling conflicts arise where they recasted Elio's Aunt Olga to be Zoe Saldana and rewritten more to fit in this newer story. Where as you could see, this film just went through a whole lot of trouble during production as the studio shifted with what happened in 2023 and the recent failures that caused them to put more efforts into a sequel product, a fact that can be seen in the original teasers and trailers and comparing them to the more recent ones in tone. But the good news is with that original premise Adrian came up, it still fits for the story that they wanted to tell, but in a way that is actually better than what they first showed and what they put in specifically for Elio and his wants and this whole entire story of fitting in. It's a movie that fits in real-world things when it comes to our understanding of space while also combining it with this fun cartoonish animation that you love that takes it to newer heights of translucent and luminescent qualities as they describe themselves. To find a balance between extraterrestrial and cuteness, if you get what I'm trying to say, with how bright this film can be with its great colors and where you are in this communiverse and how that concept connects to all species of aliens with each other. That even though one character might be considered to be creepy or disgusting in the real world, they also have this beauty to them that makes them cute. Where it also helped during the production that they were inspired by many great sci-fi films of the past, particularly those of the 70s and 80s when it comes to things like E.T. or Close Encounters, but also, interesting enough, a little more darker when it comes to the horror of Alien, which many people would warn you that some scenes might be a little scarier than what you would expect, including for children in some instances, which is a very interesting choice that I think works when you know how Pixar includes references or themes to other works that you know connects more with adults, even though it's not quite like you understand. Just like how I understand Elio's position in the film, growing up the way that I did, feeling alone at times or struggling to fit in, which is the very important element that must be focused on to find your own place. The feeling of not being understood by anyone, which is a very basic universal concept that people can apply in their own way. Especially when it comes to the second act of the movie, where it really dives into that aspect when Elio's already in space, in a place that he likes compared to being back down here on Earth, and the consequences that arises from it thereafter. And like I said earlier, I think this version really did a good job compared to what they would have had previously that left a lot more to be desired. Said something sort of new but not enough to garner enough interest, where the motivations were just much more fleshed out in a way that the audience will somewhat understand, and that's a home run win of an idea. But what's not a home run idea, however, is the eventual performance of this film with its projected box office only being around 20 million-ish or so for its opening weekend. And this relates to the problem I previously discussed in my video talking about why original movies don't really work anymore, and why it was really best for them to push Inside Out 2 last year as the success it made. Because we still have trained ourselves as an audience around the idea of familiarity and haven't gotten quite out of it, where original films are just not as interesting to a broader audience until later on. People only come back to theaters when they know they're getting something great and feel less inclined to support what else that they do have. And this potential opening is great proof and a consequence of that promotion and production that went into the project specifically, which is very disappointing. But like they do say, The good news is that it has the potential to do a sleeper hit run like Elemental that I covered, being so impressed at it, where we just need to give it time. A chance to flourish in this day and age after what happened during COVID, based on what people say or what people do with that. Because everything is strictly within our control to see something or not, and when they see those big billions for a simple sequel, they will go along with that because that's how they make their money. And if this does not do too well, or even potentially does not even have an Elemental style run, they will go with whatever makes that money and make less original content than what you get. And that's really unfortunate, but it's a simple truth that exists that I want to make clear because it really is a situation that goes both ways. Because for an artist to create, there has to be someone to see it, to take an interest in the work, because otherwise what's the point of doing anything anymore if you don't actually want that? It's not just on the company for doing the simple thing. It's for us to give into that simple thing that counts more. That we need to see that Pixar is a studio capable of producing so many great things that others can't even remotely come close at, but do it simply better because they're just stupid dumb fun, which is infuriating to me because some of those lesser films make way more money than they are supposed to, leaving the great originals even by others like DreamWorks for their best works in the dust for the things that they have created, never reaching the true heights it should have had and creating a situation for the worse, which is what all videos are for, right? To inform and guide people on the best path or option to take, which I say, just like I did for my short review on The Wild Robot a while back, to actually watch this movie, to take a chance on something like this even though it might not seem like the best thing they've made so far, but just good enough to remind you what everyone else can like. Then if I can have a good time, then probably so can you, and I do encourage you to see this movie if you're interested. So I'm all done. Goodbye.